for the United States shortly after taking office. Listen to what Romney said and listen to the president's comeback.
You went to the Middle East and you flew to Egypt and to Saudi Arabia and to Turkey and Iraq. And by the way, you skipped Israel, our closest friend in the region. But you went to the other nations. And by the way, they noticed that you skipped Israel. And then in those nations, and on Arabic TV, you said that America had been dismissive and derisive. You said that on occasion, America had dictated to other nations. Mr. President, America has not dictated to other nations. We have freed other nations from dictators.
Let me respond. If we're going to talk about trips that we've taken, when I was a candidate for office, first trip I took was to visit our troops. And when I went to Israel as a candidate, I didn't take donors. I didn't attend fundraisers. I went to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum there, to remind myself the nature of evil and why our bond with Israel will be unbreakable. And then I went down to the border towns of Sderot, which had experienced missiles raining down from Hamas. And I saw families there who showed me where missiles had come down near their children's bedrooms. And I was reminded of what that would mean if those were my kids, which is why, as president, we funded an Iron Dome program to stop those missiles. So that's how I've used my travels, when I travel to Israel and when I travel to the region. And the central question at this point is going to be, who's going to be credible to all parties involved?
Both candidates speaking very, very glowingly of their support for Israel. One thing I did notice, Anderson, is that a few weeks ago in 60 Minutes, the president said Israel was one of our closest allies in the region. Tonight, twice, not once, but twice, he said Israel is our, quote, greatest ally in the region. A nuance, but significant for some voters out there, no doubt.
Yeah, we want to take a look right now at where the race stands for that. Let's go to John King. Where are we tonight?
Well, we entered this debate, and we'll see if this debate moves the dial. We'll see if it actually moves voters. The past debates have increased. The first one, Governor Romney's Republican intensity, also helped him with independents in the suburbs. Second one, without a doubt, President Obama came back up with the Democratic base, stopped some of the Romney momentum, but I'm going to get up and take a walk and go across, because now we enter into 14 days. 14 days, and each of the campaigns has to make critical decisions, and they will do this with the polling they have from after tonight, plus their just gut sense coming in, and we have a race that's playing out, 9 toss-up states across the country. The president at the moment has an advantage, and a decent advantage, when it comes to the race to 270. That's the Electoral College. Let's take this away and bring this up. Here's how we scored it coming in. You need 270 to win. Dark blue, solid Obama. Light blue, leaning Obama. Dark blue for solid Republican. Light red, leaning Governor Romney's way. So 237 to 191 coming in. These 9 states, they go from Nevada in the west to New Hampshire in the east, Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, all of our toss-up states. The debate tonight was in the state of Florida. Now, that one has been trending Governor Romney's way. They feel more and more confident about it. The question is, if the Obama campaign agrees, and privately they do, they think it's moving that way, they're not convinced yet, do they slow down, stall, cut some of their television advertising? That's what's going to happen, Anderson, Wolf, and all over the next 14 days. This is a game of chess. And the president has an easier path, not an easy path, but an easier path to 270. So when you look at all these toss-up states, they will have to make calculations. Where should we land the plane, whether it's the president or Governor Romney, Vice President Biden or Congressman Ryan? Where do we spend more on TV? Where do we spend less on TV? Where do we need our friends to go in and help us out? Where do we have to gin up the turnout operation? So here's what I would say here. If you look at this, I think the president won the battle tonight to mention Ohio more in this debate. And why is that state so important? Well, no Republican has ever won without the state of Ohio. And increasingly, again, I'm going to do a hypothetical, Democrats think, at least coming into the debate, this one was starting to get away, the state of Florida, that North Carolina was starting to get away. You can be certain, even though the president might have had the right answer on policy, we'll debate that one, but the answer about Navy ships will play in the state of Virginia. If this happens, and this is what the Romney campaign thinks is happening, Florida, North Carolina, and Virginia going to Republican DNA, how does the president block Governor Romney? This is the key right here. I talked to a top Democrat tonight who said, we can't win without it, he can't win without it. Ohio is the big battleground in the days ahead, because if the president can keep Ohio, and he can win where he's leading now in Iowa, and he can win where he's leading now in Wisconsin, if nothing else changed in the map, That's 271. Gets the president over the top. So we're going to watch. Governor Romney's going to try to block the president by keeping Iowa in play, and he needs to keep Ohio in play. And Wolf, as we go through this again, the thing I would watch over the next couple of days is how do the travel schedules change, and watch the TV money. It will go up in some states, down in others. That will tell you where they think the final battlegrounds are.
The point you made about Virginia and Navy ships, that's a huge issue, especially in the southern part of Virginia. And the impression, I guess, some Republicans are getting is the president of the United States, John, was comparing Navy ships to what, horses and bayonets?
Essentially, the point is Governor Romney says you need to build more ships. The president's trying to make the case that technological advances mean you can have fewer ships, and sarcastically saying, you know, we have these thing called aircraft carriers now, and you land planes on them. There's a legitimate debate about the size of the military. How much do you need? How much of it goes into technology? How much of it goes into cyber war? There's a huge and legitimate debate about that, but life and politics are not fair. You can be certain Governor Romney's going to try to use that one right here in the big Navy state of Virginia.
Yeah, the largest naval port in the world in Norfolk. John, thanks very much. Our expert team of producers, researchers, reporters, they've been very busy trying to figure out whether the candidates were telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in tonight's debate. John Berman is joining us with a reality check, part 2. John.
We're going to talk about Russia now, Wolf. On Russia, President Obama charged that Mitt Romney has said Russia is our biggest foe, and Romney defended himself.
A few months ago, when you were asked what's the biggest geopolitical threat facing America, you said Russia. Not Al-Qaeda, you said Russia. In the 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back.
Russia, I indicated, is a geopolitical foe. Not a,
Number one,
excuse me, it's a geopolitical foe. And I said in the same paragraph, I said, and Iran is the greatest national security threat we face.
So what are the facts here? This all came up in an interview with none other than CNN's Wolf Blitzer. Romney said that Russia was the biggest geopolitical foe of the U.S. He also went on to say, when pressed by Wolf, that Iran and North Korea were also big foes. Let's listen.
This is to Russia. This is, without question, our number one geopolitical foe. They fight every cause for the world's worst actors. The idea that he has some more flexibility in mind for Russia is very, very troubling indeed.
Well, you think Russia's a bigger foe right now than, let's say, Iran or China or North Korea? Is that what you're suggesting, Governor?
Well, I'm saying in terms of a geopolitical opponent, the nation that lines up with the world's worst actors. Of course, the greatest threat that the world faces is a nuclear Iran, and nuclear North Korea is already troubling enough. But when these terrible actors pursue their course in the world, and we go to the United Nations looking for ways to stop them, when Assad, for instance, is murdering his own people, we go to the United Nations, and who is it that always stands up for the world's worst actors? It is always Russia, typically with China alongside.
So our verdict here is really true on both sides. Romney did call Russia our biggest geopolitical foe, and then when pushed by Wolf, he expanded to include Iran and North Korea, though he said, interestingly enough, that Russia is still standing behind all of them. Wolf?
Interesting stuff, and interesting to see. It reminded me of that interview I did with Romney a few months back. Let's go back to Candy right now. Candy?
Hey, well, thanks. I'm still here with James Carville, Democratic strategist R.A. Fleischer, and I know I don't even have to ask a question. He's been leaping out of his seat here to try to get in on this conversation. What is bothering you?
What's bothering me is this. Is Keynes once famously said, if you want to pick the winner of a beauty contest, don't pick who you think the prettiest girl is. Pick who you think the judges believe the prettiest girl is. We're parsing every statement about what does this mean in Hampton Roads, if it did this, or what does geopolitical mean. The truth of the matter is people look at these things. Who looked presidential? Who looked in command? Who looked strong? Who was articulate? Who was coherent? And the answer is all Obama. I mean, this is we're getting lost in the weeds. Yes, this was clearly, if you watch this debate, the president looked like the stronger guy. He looked like the guy that had something to say. He looked like the guy that was on the attack. And I'm sorry, after the first debate, it was evident to me that the president was not on his game. I said so. This is as evident as it can be that of all of the things that you look, the qualities that people look for in a president, it was all went to President Obama. But maybe there was some things in there that was a strategic thing that might mean something to this part of the country or that part of the country or what geopolitical means. But in terms of the overall impression of this debate, I'm sorry. If you're picking on what people are looking at when they see this, I think it's pretty clear that he did very, very well tonight.
And you agree with all that, right? Because we have to go. No, I'm kidding.
Well, it's hard to see that. I think when you look at the conditions around the world under the last 4 years and what's happened, as Mitt Romney described it, with the Arab Spring and the turmoil that's going on around the world, and how we're in a much more dangerous world than we were 4 years ago, I don't think that people are going to run to that conclusion. I think people saw a candidate in Mitt Romney who was presidential, passed the commander-in-chief test, and that's, I think, what Mitt Romney's objective was tonight. But I go back to the bigger issue. It was, how do you win elections? And you win elections based on who appeals to the country more on the economy. And Mitt Romney was able tonight to repeat his core argument against Barack Obama, which is that he's presided over a weak economy for 4 years and things haven't gotten better. And he tied it to foreign policy. I think it's impossible for anybody to say that this race is going to move voters just after the second debate.
This debate is going to move.
That's right.
And there are two questions. The first question is, who won the debate? So let me just ask you, we know James thinks that President Obama won the debate. Would you agree?
My point is, on a foreign policy debate like this, there's no one winner or not. You could say that the president won on points. He seemed to be more aggressive than Mitt Romney tonight. I'll concede that point. He was more aggressive. But this is about winning elections, and in that sense, it's not about who won the debate. That is not the issue.
And that's the second question. Will this move the race? Which something is going to have to move this race, because we're looking at dead even, I think, in our poll of polls.
The course of this race was set after the first debate. That was one of the most powerful debates in American politics. As much as James would like to think that this was the equivalent of the first, not even close. That nothing is going to change the trajectory of this race after that first debate, not the second debate, not the third.
You know, if being strong, if being presidential, if being coherent, if being articulate doesn't move it, then maybe nothing's going to move it. But he was all of those things tonight. For this 90 minutes tonight, if this would have been a Little League baseball game, they would have called the thing after 4 innings. I mean, that's evident to anybody that watched this, and I mean, all right, to give him credit, at least has, admits that, yes, Obama won the debate. We're talking about 90 minutes, from 9 to 10:30 Eastern Daylight Time. This thing was not close. Maybe the world is messed up, or maybe their deficit is high, or maybe these other things. We can argue that, but we can't argue what happened this 90 minutes.
We can't argue whether you think it's going to be a major force in moving these numbers.
I don't know that. That's a fair point. Look, the question is not, did Obama win the debate? He did. The question is, did he win the election tonight? That we don't know. We'll know in a couple of weeks.
So you all actually sort of agree. You both think that
I think the president was more feisty tonight. The president got in more jabs tonight, and I think also he had to, because he's punching from behind. Given what happened in the first debate, he's been more aggressive in the second and the third. Governor Romney went into this, I can only imagine, with a different agenda. He did not want to be as feisty and as punchy as he was in that first debate. My sense is because he wanted to send that signal, especially to women voters, that Mitt Romney is a man that you can trust in the Oval Office as commander-in-chief.
And that he's not going to bomb things.
Right. Well, I think he wanted to suggest that he's thoughtful. That was his approach, and I think that's what he delivered on.
We'll see. I've never believed that you do yourself good and run for president looking weak, and I think that Governor Romney looked weak tonight. That's my view. I'm pretty.
We'll check back in 5 days, see how it moved the polls. Anderson, I'm going to toss it back to you.
Yeah, we're waiting the results of our poll that we're going to bring to you as soon as we have it. And again, that's really the question. I mean, there was the question of who won this debate, and then there's the question of what kind of an impact is it actually going to have. But you know, when James Carville starts quoting Eastern Standard Time, you're in trouble when he gets that specific.
I don't think we know. I mean, I don't think we can know. I mean, I think that it's very clear that the president won this on points. What was interesting to me was that I think the president was very successful in trying to make Mitt Romney look out of date, behind the times, not only on the warship thing, but also on the Russia thing, saying...
We were getting the results of the poll, so let me just interrupt Gloria and go to Will for that.
All right, Anderson, thanks very much. Here we are. We now have the first results of our poll. This is a poll of registered voters across the country who watched tonight's debate, and we have a verdict on who won. 48% say President Obama won. 40% say Mitt Romney won. 59% say President Obama did better than expected. 15% say he did worse. 23% say he did about the same as expected. As for Mitt Romney, 44% say he did better than expected. 26% say he did worse. 26% say he did about the same as expected. Remember, this is a scientific poll of debate watchers only. We found that a higher percentage of Republicans tend to tune into these debates than Democrats. We're still crunching more numbers. Stand by. You're going to find out how the debate influenced people's votes And up next, we're going to tell you how debate watchers rated the candidate's abilities as a commander-in-chief. Anderson, you and the team over there have got something to digest.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, as we get more of these numbers and we look at them, we'll kind of be able to kind of parse it out a little bit more. But does that surprise you?
Well, the key question is, does it change anybody's vote? Right. Not do you score the debate winner, because there are people